Hi team. So I think we can go and start the session. Meantime, if others are available, they can join the session. So let me share my screen. Before start of the session, if anyone has any questions from the previous sessions or anything. In the last session, right, what we have seen the switch statement, right? How we can go and write the switch logics and all. So in the last session, we have seen that, okay, we can go and add the switch conditions, right? But now we can see in that one, right? We can go and enhance this more. So now if you see, right, if I will come back into this one, suppose if I will test it out. So for example, right, we will do the divide, right? And divide when we do, right? This one was when we are doing, right? What we are getting that output, right? If you see, we are getting that output, right? Now suppose if we can do here 0, right? What will happen, right? Again, it got failed, right? That okay for division, right? We cannot go and do the multiply, right? If you see, server was unable to process the request, right? Because in the divide, right, when we do divide by 0, right? What will happen, right? It will come that infinite and all, right? So it means like there are some conditions, right, where our integration got failed, right? So we have to deal with this also, right? So it means like we need to write some conditional statement that okay, in the case of division, right, if number 2 is 0, right, then it should not do anything, right? So what we do, right, how we can do, right? So for that one, right, first let me go into this one. So what is happening, right? This is our division logic, right? So in the division, right, what we are doing, right, directly we're coming and we are doing the logic here, right? So what is the other way, right? We can go and deal with this situation, right? So it means like inside this one, right, we can go and write some more condition, right? That okay, if it is a 0, right, then don't do anything. If it is a not 0, then only do that thing, right? So that is how we can go and do, right? So it means like within the switch, can we go and write one more switch, right? It's kind of that nested switch, right? Can we write that nested switch, right? So we'll see that one. So we can come here and we can create a clone of this one. And we can write nested switch condition and clone. Now we can go. So we know, right? In all other cases, right? If number 2 is a 0, right? It will work, right? Because it's kind of a result only, it will go and change, right? So in the case of addition, right, number 1 plus 0 0, number 1 only, right? Number 2 minus 0 to number 2, right? So we will get that output in this one, right? But in this case, right, we will not get that output, right? So what we do, right, when we come inside, right, so there are two ways of handling, right? So we will do once. Can we go and write one more if condition within there, right? So we can come here before doing any calculation and we can go and write here switch condition. So if you see, right, what is happened, right? One switch condition was there. Within that one, right, we have created one more switch condition, right? And here what we do, right, we can say that, okay, so it will depend upon the number 2, right? So we can say number 2 should be greater than 0, right? So we can say greater than 0. Right? What it means? It means if it is a positive value, right? If it is a non-zero, right? Then only it will go and work, right? Or we can write not equal to, right? Because if you do minus also, right, the at time also it should work, right? So number 2 not equal to, because only in 0 scenario it will go and fail, right? So we can say not equal to 0, right? We can go and validate, save. So now what will happen, right? When number 2 not equal to 0, right? That time only this calculation or this logic should happen, right? So what we do right now, we can go and move this logic, right? So we can say cut and paste here. This will come inside. We can do this also and paste here, and this also will go and move inside. So what is happen, right? We have put that logic one more condition, right? One more check we have put, right? That okay, if number 2 is 0, right? Non-zero, right? Then only do the calculation. Otherwise don't do, right? We can go and save this one. Now what will happen, right? When it is a non-zero, right? It will give that output, right? But what about when it will be 0, right? So that time, right? What it will give, right? It won't give anything, right? So let us test first and then we'll see, right? So we can go and activate this one. Oh, we'll do the division. So I will again do 4 divided by 2. So when this is right, so number 2 not equal to 0, right? So we can say run. And what will happen, right? It will give that output, right? Okay. So if you see it, we are not given the correct value, right? We have given everything here, right? So we can go and give here and we can say run now. So division completed successfully, right? And if I will go to the flow chart, right? So if you see it, what has happened? It went inside the divide operation, and inside the divide operation, right? It is gone into the this condition, right? Because number 2 not equal to 0, right? So it means it is working fine. Now what we'll do next, right? If suppose it was a number 2 is 0, right? So now what will happen, right? Our integration, will it fill again or not, right? Let us see. So if you see that we are getting 200, okay, right? It means our integration is not failing, right? But what is happening, right? We are not getting any output or anything, right? So if you come here, right? It came inside this one, then it came into this logic, and then from this one, right? It has not gone into this one, right? So what is happened, right? It came out from this one, right? So nothing, no activity, nothing happened, right? So what it means, right? In this one, right? We have to write the null condition, right? The else condition we need to write, right? So we can go and write that else condition so that okay, it will go and show some output, right? So we can go and do the deactivate. So in the switch condition, we can come and here, right? We can go to this add, and if we need to write some more equal logical condition, we can write. Otherwise, we can go and write that generic condition. So we can go and expand this one. So let's say come back into this one. So if you see, right, otherwise condition we have added, right? Now what we do right here, we can come again here and we can write the mapper here for the output, and we can give create. So we can come to the response wrapper. So in the output, right, blank output, it will go and show. So we can say create target no. And in the message, right, we can give the message that okay, number 2, we can say number 2 should not be 0 in case of division. Right, suppose this is some message we can say that okay, user will able to understand that okay, what he has done, right? So we can do validate. Now we can come back again and save. We can go back again. We can go and do that activate and refresh. Now let us go and run this one. Right. So this time if I will go and do this one, right, number 2 by 0, right, what will happen, right, we will get that one, right, output null will get, and number 2 should not be 0, right. It means we have handled this condition also, right. So it means like we can go and write multiple switch conditions also, right. Within the switch condition, if you have to do some other calculation, right, some more thing we need to do it, we can go and write those things easily, right. So that is what we have in the switch condition. Now this is the one way of handling, right. Now in this one, if you see it, we just have added one condition only, right. So what we do, right, I will go and make a clone of this one. Can we go and write into that existing condition only, right, additional one more condition, right. Let us see. We can just switch multi condition, right. So multiple conditions will go and put into our one, will put into our package and clone, right. So this was our flow, right, and we know, right, it was going to fail here, right. So what we do, right, here only can we go and write something, right. So this is one condition, right. Can we go and write one more condition along with this one, right? So that, okay, instead of taking care of one condition, right, it will go and take care of two conditions, right? So we'll see, can we go and do that one? So we can click into this one. So if you see, right, this is the one condition what we have already, right? We can go and click into configure here. And here, if you see, right, we have add condition or add group, right? So it means we can go and add the condition, right? So suppose we wanted to add one more condition, right? We can say add, and what will happen, right? It will go and put the second condition, right? So what condition we wanted to put right here? So we wanted to check number 2, right? Number 2 not equal to 0, right? So we can say not equal to 0. So this is the second condition what we have done, right? We can go and do the save, right? So it means like we are able to add, right? What is happening, right? If you see, right, now two conditions are working. In this one, right, what is happening? Only one condition, operation is equal to multiply, right? But in this one, what will happen? It will check that, okay, value should be divide also, and number 2 not equal to 0 also should be there, right? So it means we can go and add that condition, right? Now, for example, right, if you see right here, what condition it came with the AND condition, right? If suppose you need OR condition, right? So if you see it, all of or any of, right? If you write any, right, what will happen? This condition will go and change OR condition, right? What it means, right? It means in this one, right, if any of these values, right, will be matched, right, it will go and execute, right? So that is what we have, right? So if you wanted to write AND condition or condition, both it is possible here, right? So what will happen, right? We just have to add one more scenario, and then, right, in this one, right, we have to select one. So all of is nothing but the AND condition, right? And any of is nothing but that OR condition. If you see, right, it will go and change and it will go and change OR, right? So we need to have that all of, right, only, because AND condition only we need, right? So we can go and write that AND condition here. We can go and test it out again and activate and refresh. Now we can go and run this again. So this time, right, if you do, right, 4 divided by 2, right, what will happen, right? When it is a correct value, it will go and give you that output, right? Okay. So we need to give here. So we can say run. We got output 2 because if you see, right, operation is a divide operation and number 2 not equal to 0, right? So if you see right here where it will go into this condition, right? So if you see message entered this condition, right? It will go and do this one, right? If suppose number 2 is equal to 0, right? Where it will go, right? It will go to this otherwise condition, right? Because inside this one, right, we are not written the logic, right? So now how we know, right? We have to do this logic or we have to add the logic here, right? So that completely depend upon your requirement, right? If suppose here we need the custom message or custom thing, right? We can go and add here, right? That how we did previously. If we don't need, right, we can go and add the condition here only. So it is completely upon the data and requirement, right? Where we do. but both the things are possible, right? In one operation, we can add the multiple conditions, or we can do the condition within the condition, right? So both the ways it is possible, right? So this is how we can go and do this one, right? Nested condition. Any questions if anyone has till now?
So instead of not equal to this condition, can we write our custom condition also?
It is a custom condition only, right?
I mean, we are using what is available there, right? Like, say, I
Okay.
want the number to be between some 5 and 10. Okay. Then,
Then you can write two
yeah,
conditions, right?
not, I mean, greater than, less than, without using that, like, write some custom condition and use it here. Like we saw earlier, right? We can write
Okay.
concat operation.
Okay, let us see. Let me
Or any database
create
function can I call?
database function you cannot call, but yes, custom functions you can do that. So here you wanted to try out like instead of this condition, right? You wanted to try out your own condition. So if you see right, functions are available, right? You can go and call the functions.
Yeah,
So
user
this,
defined.
yes, the user defined function, right? Whatever you need to call, right? Suppose this is a condition, right? You can go and add functions also.
Hmm. Yeah.
So what we can try out, for example, right? We can see contains operation. So here you can write like, for example, if you do this one, right? So suppose you have the input, right? From input you wanted to bring out some value, right? So you can write that contains logic, then that will bring, right? So operator, yes, you cannot go and do your own operator, but here, right, you can go and use these things,
Okay.
right? So in this one, right, maybe you can write your logic, right? That okay. So from your custom function, right, you can return 0, 1, right, based on some conditions. So suppose you
Okay.
have some input, right? You can take that input, for example, that between you tool, right? You
Right.
can write your custom function, and from that one, right, you can return true, false, right? And then here you can check that condition equal to, right? So operator, we have to use these operators only. But yes, in your code, right, it's kind of here only you are writing one more logic, right? So that thing it is possible. And
Mhm.
the next question, which is the database, right? So database functions you cannot call here.
Yeah. And what is that user defined? There's something user defined.
Yeah, this user defined is the one which is our custom one.
Hmm.
So whatever the
User. Mhm.
libraries we have defined, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so those things it will be available here. So you can go and use those things here. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah. So in case, say, for example, I'm processing some sales order integration and say that order type should be in a list of values which I have predefined. Okay. So then only process this particular flow. So that those kind of user defined conditions can be added.
Yes, you can write those things. Otherwise, like for that one, right? What you do, right? You can use the database, but not like this one. And the other way around, you can go and do, right? So what you can do, right? When we come to the ATP, right? So that time I will explain in detail. But as of now, right,
Yeah.
what you can do in this one, right? Suppose you got the sales order, right?
Mm.
Here you got the sales order, right? After that one, what you can do, right? In the database, right? You can write some function or procedure, right?
Yeah.
So that
I mean,
will be there into that will be there into your database, correct? Because
yeah.
you wanted to
Somewhere.
check at the runtime, right? If you do here, right? Here also it is possible. But here what will happen, right? You will write predefined set of order numbers, right?
Mm.
It is not going to be the real time.
Okay.
When you wanted to check with the real-time data, right?
Right.
So what will happen, right? You know, right, in your database, you will have that value, correct?
Correct.
So that is the one way, right? In your database, if the value is there, right, you can write one function, and that function, right, you can call, and that function will return that, okay, if that sales order exists, right, return true. If that doesn't exist, return false. And then, right, after this one, right, whatever the output will be based on that one, you can write the condition. So before to this one, right, you can call here one that PL SQL code or function you can call, right? So that is the
Yeah.
one way. Other way is like, suppose if the REST API is available, right?
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
in the Fusion, right, we have the REST APIs also, right? You will pass the sales order number, right? If data will return, right, it means sales order exists, right? If sales order doesn't exist, right, what will happen? It will give that some other message, right? Or blank output will come, right? So based on that also, right, you can decide that, okay, whether this sales order exists or not, right?
Yeah.
So before to that one, right, you can write that logic here.
Yeah. Basically, how we can use a PLSQL and make the switch conditions and all.
Yeah, so switch condition before the switch, right, you have to execute that one. And
Hmm.
that based on that output, right, you can write the switch condition. Within the switch, right, you cannot write that one. Like in the conditional, right, like where we are writing, right, at this condition, right, at this condition, we cannot call that directly. Before to this one, right, suppose here, right, here I will call that ATP, right, function I
Okay.
will call, right, and that output, right, I will go and store into one variable, right, and then based on that variable, right, I can write the switch conditions.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah. Understood.
Prashant, what is the add group there? Is it like look for
Add group?
like guys are somewhere instead of add condition there is add group also, right?
Okay.
Like a
You
group of
if you have to,
values.
yeah. So you're talking about here, right?
Yeah,
This add
yeah,
group,
like
right?
that. Huh?
Okay. So let me delete this condition once. So now we have only one condition, right? So we have seen add condition, right? Now we do add group. So what will happen, right? Add group is kind of a subgroup. Sometimes, right, you need to write like that uh, subquery kind of thing, right? So if I will come here, right? For example, right, we have two things, right? So as of now, right, suppose we have this one, right? Operation is equal to divide, right? So this is the one condition we have, right? Now suppose if we need to add one more condition, right? So what we do, right? We can write or and, right? We can use any operator of this one, and then we can write the second condition as suppose number 2 not equal to 0, right? So this is like our one condition, right? But suppose if you need to write something like this one, right? That, okay, condition 1 will be there, then you have or and within this one, right? What will happen, right? You need to write suppose one more if condition, one more two conditions you need to write, like, so suppose for example, right, outside, right, it will be and condition, and within this one, right, it should be or condition, right? Like this one, right? So how you can achieve this kind of thing, right? So this is a kind of a group, right? So suppose here, right, we can say number 2 not equal to 0, number 2 not equal to, or suppose greater than 0, right? Number 2 not equal to 0, and this is just example. I don't go with this one, right? Because you say that, okay, directly we can write that greater than also, right? It is just I am explaining that, okay, one condition in second condition, right, it is a group, right? Out of this group, right, only one value can exist, right? Something like that one. So for that reason, right, we have this group, right? So for example, right, let me write here how that output will, like, the system will look like. So one way we can say not equal to 0, right? So not equal to 0, it means like this is a one condition, right? And second is like negative value, right? We can write. So we can write one more condition, and we can say that, okay, number should not be negative also, right? So it means it should be greater than 0. We can do the save. See what is the condition came right here. One condition, then it is a group condition, right? Number two, right? So out of these, right, if any value will satisfy, right, it will go and work, right? So if you need to write that sub condition kind of thing, right? So for that one, right, we have that add group. Correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because normally, right, we cannot in the real requirement, right, it can come like this one, right? But suppose within this also, right, sub condition can come, right? So for that reason, if we have the parent condition, we can write the add group directly, like add condition. And if we have that subgrouping or sublogic, right, so then we can write the add group. Now suppose we have added this, right? This is now kind of working, right? Now let me, now what will happen, right? Suppose, let me make a clone of this one first. And now we will use the assign action. So I will give the assign action here. And I will explain that, okay, what it is assign action. Now suppose, let me run directly first. Activate. So our nested condition, right? Nested logic is completed. Now we are going to the next topic, which is the assign action. Now, first I wanted to show you the demo that, okay, why we need those kind of thing, or why it is a kind of a best practice to use the assign actions. Now suppose we have this one, right? Number one, number two, and we'll get that output, right? For example, right? So I'm doing the divide only. 4 divided by 2, and we'll get the run. Right? So we are getting that output and everything, right? Now suppose what will happen, right? If the customer says that, okay, I don't need to see this message, right? Instead of output, right, it should be a result, right? Because it is a possible, right? Customer can come and they can change at any point of time, right? They will say that, okay, I wanted to see here result. And in this one, right, I wanted to see the output, right? Output message or like custom message, something, right? But I don't need to see these two things, right? So what will happen in this case, right? We can say that, okay, we can go and change the trigger, right? But changing one thing, right? What will happen, right? It will go and impact your whole code, right? So if I will come here, right? Let us come and deactivate this one. Now we know, right? If we have to change that output variable, right? Where we can go and change it, we will come here. We can go to the continue, and continue, right? So this is our response page, right? So here we need to go and modify, right? So we know, right? Instead of output, it will be result, right? So we can say result, and instead of message, right? It will be like, we can say result message, for example, right? This is the thing what we are, right? Or we can say output message, right? So this is what we are, right? Now what we have done, right? We have changed the variable, right? As per the customer requirement, right? Now we can say continue, and finish. If you see, right, just changing one thing, right? What will happen? We got so many errors. If you see, we got so many errors, right? 5 errors we start getting. Now why we are getting the 5 error? Because our output variable got changed, right? And what we have done, right? The variable was using everywhere, right? So suppose if this was a very complicated code, right? Like suppose here in this one, right? It is like again 5 steps, right? So it is kind of a big, right? But suppose if we have like complete flow kind of 25 steps or 30 steps, right? And if we change there, right? What will happen, right? These 5, right, can increase to 25, 30, right? Then fixing everything, right, it is kind of a very complicated thing, right? So suppose if while designing, right, or while implementing, if we have used some variables or kind of thing, right, we could have not get this one, right? So logically, right, whatever our output was there, right? So now why we are getting these issues? Because this output variable, right, we have put returning from each action, right? Instead of this one, right, we should return at the final thing, right? but final thing we are not able to return. Why? Because we are not accessing these values outside, right? If you see, right, if I will define here also, right, for example, right, if I will write the mapper here, right, so we know, right, whatever the messages will be there, right, so those messages will get here, right? So logically, right, we should have written here, right? And only one place we can go and change. But these outputs, right, we cannot go and access here, correct? Because these are within this scope, right? So if I will come here, for example, right, so, we are not getting anything here, right, in the source, right? So how we can go and get those things, right? So we know, right, logically this should be the way, right? So that okay, if this output variables will change, right, what will happen, right? Only this we have to go and modify it. So only one error should come. But as of now, right, we are returning this mapper from each flow, right? So that time it was wrong, right? So why we need to do right that one, right? Or how we can handle this one, right? So we can go and define the variables before going into this one, right? So in the actions, if you see, right, we have this assign activity. So this assign is nothing but, if you see, right, assign values to a variable using the expression builder, right? So this is nothing but like, if we wanted to create variables, right, we can go and define those things, right? So what we do, right, we can come here and we can write assign variable. Right? So what will happen, right? New action came here, right? Assign. So normally, right, whenever we do any programming, right, we used to define all the variables in the beginning. Why? Because if you define the variables in the beginning, right, it is a kind of a best practice, right? Yeah, so if you written any programming code or anything, right, whenever we write any function, right, we used to define all the variables first, right? So that okay, we can go and access that anywhere, everywhere, right? If suppose I will define this action, right, within this one, right, what will happen? I can go and use here only. If I will define here in the first point only, right, I can use inside, I can use outside, anywhere I can use, right? So we used to call this as a global variables, right? You can define all your local variables right here, so that okay, it will be available at the complete scope, right? So now what we'll do, right, we'll go and create two variables here, right? One for the output result and one for the message, right? So what we do, right, we can come here and we can click into this plus button, right? So here what will happen, right? We can go and give a variable name. So if you wanted to use existing variables, you can select from the drop down list, right? Or we can go and create our one, right? So I will do here. So if you give new name, right, what will happen with that name, right? New variable will be created. So I will say variable result, right? So this is the variable which will go and contain the value, right? And in the beginning, right, what we need to do, right? We wanted to specify null only, right? Because here we are just creating that variable, right? So we'll use a variable result is equal to null, right? So this is what we are able to do, right? If you see one variable we are able to define it, we need to define one more variable right here for the message also, right? So what we do, right, we can create again. So this time if you see, right, if I will create, right, variable result will come. So suppose if you wanted to override that value, right, you can go and use that one, you can go and override, or you can go and give the new name. So it's like in this one, right, if you give a new name, right, what will happen? It will go and create. If you use the existing, right, it will go and override it. So we can say variable result message, right? So this is what we are, right? So what we have done, right, we have used our two variables right here. In this one, right, the beginning itself, right, we have used two variables. Now what I will do, right, in each operation, right, instead of returning this value right directly here, right, what I will do, right, I will go and store that output into these variables, right? And then that output, right, I will go and map here at the big end, right? So if you said what I do, right, we know we don't need this mapper now, right, here, because we will return the mapper at one point only, right? So what I will do, right, I can go and delete this one. So we can say delete. So now we have deleted, right? Now if you say it, there's no error for this one, right? Same way, right, we can go and delete for everything, right? So that okay, we'll not get any errors, right? Or we can do one by one. So here we can come, right? And now what I will do, right, I will go and use the assign activity again, right? So I will use the assign activity, and this time, right, what I will do, right, whatever the output is coming from this one, right, So that I can go and assign into our variables, right? So I can write here plus, and this time, right, I will not create a new variable. What I will do, right, I will go and use that existing variables, right, which we defined in the beginning. And here what I will do, right, whatever our output, right, so I will go and assign that output. So that output will come into from this one, right, add calculation, right? So if you see, the output will be available from this one, add response, add result, right? So this will contain that output, right? So we can come here and we can put this on, right? So what will happen, right? Variable result will contain our value. We can go and do the save. So if you see, right, what we have done, right, at this point of time, right, we have created the variable. Let me just close this so we have enough space, right? So here what we have done, right, we have created a variable, and here, right, I have overridden that variable, right? So that, okay, here it was a blank. In this one, right, we will have that value, right? And what I will do, right, I will create the second variable also. In the second, right, anyway, it is going to be the custom message. So we can use the second one, variable result message, right? And what we do, right, here we can give the custom message. We can write addition completed successfully. Now we can go and save. So now what is happened, right? We have assigned that one. Now these variables, right? Because this is a global variable, right? So this variable will be available at the end. The output of this one, right? It is not available, right? But these variables, right? These variables will be available outside also. So if I will come again here, right? I can come to the response wrapper, right? So we have two things, right? Result and output message. So if you see, right, variable result and variable output message, right? So these we are defined as a global parameter, right? So these will be available here, right? So we can go and map that one, right? So it means, right, what it means, right? It means the output, right, will be available directly, right? So we can do the validate. It got validated. Now if you said whatever we have achieved earlier, right, we are able to achieve the same thing back. But what we have done, right, we have just tweak our code little bit changed, right? So instead of returning directly here, right, we have created the variables first, and then we have used those variables again, and then we can go and use. So at any point of time, right, if you are not able to access, and suppose in case if you need to, this is the scenario one, right? Maybe some scenario, right, where we don't need output variables outright, or suppose it's kind of sequential flow, right? And that time, right, we need some output variable outside, right? So we know, right, we cannot access that outside, right? So this is the one way, right, we can create assign a variable in the beginning, and that variable, right, we can go and use outside, right? So that way, right, we can go and access that value outside of that one, right? Now what we do, right, we'll do the same thing for this also. And this two variables, right, these are a kind of a generic variable, right? If suppose flow will go into this one, right, it will contain the output of this one. It will go and flow into this one, right? Second one, so that will contain the flow of this one, right? Now let us go and we'll quickly fix this one. So we don't need that mapper here also. And do save changes first. Delete this one. We can write the mapper again. Sorry, not mapper, assign activity. So if you able to get some concepts right now, if you see, right, it is kind of a real programming like only, right? Only that we need to have this concept, right? That okay, how we can write, right? So we can here variable result, output will come from this one, and subtract result. We need to create our second variable also. We can write plus variable result message, and we can say subtraction completed successfully. Let me copy this message. We can do the save, right? So if you see, right, the errors are reducing automatically, right? Now we can go and do same thing quickly into these also. Now we can come back, use assign activity. So result will contain the value from this one. Message. Now we can do the delete also. Variable result again. We can go into the save. Now we just have our last thing is this one. In this one, right, what we have, right, this message we are having. So let me just copy this message. Now we can come outside because we don't need this mapper itself. We can go and delete this mapper. And we can go and use the assign activity again. So the variable, right, it will contain the null value only, right? Here, right, what we'll do, right, we'll give the message. So we can go and do the save. Now if you see, right, we are not having any issues, right? All the issues got resolved, right? And now our code is like at logically, right, it is correct. Now suppose first I will go and test it out. Activate. So now what we are doing, we have not written any new logic, right? It is an existing logic, but we just have to restructure it into the better programming code, right? Now we can go and run this one. Body. So this time if we will go and divide, right? We are getting the output, right? So in the execution, right, there is no change. But what is happen, right? If I will go and do the flow, right? What happened, right? It came here, then it is doing this step first, right? Now what is this step, right? It is assigning the variables, right? If you see, two variables, it was assigned with the null value, right? Then it came inside this one. And in the previous, right, what we are doing, right, we are returning the output from here only, right? But now what is happening, right? Whatever our output, right? So that output is assigning into this one, right? If you see message received by this one. So if you see our output was, instead of assigning directly to the output variable, right, it was assigning to the variables, right? And now what is happening, right? Then that variable, right, we are using for the mapping purpose, right? So here, right? So it means like the working wise, right? It is a working same way. Now suppose customer can come again, right? They can say that, okay, I wanted to use the old variable names only, right? This time, right, if we have to do any modification, it would be easier compared to what we have did previously, right? So for example, right, customer can come and they can say that, okay, we need to use some other variable names, right? So this time, right, previously when we modified the variable names, right, what happened, right? We got around 5 errors, right? So this time if we will modify, right, we'll see how much we can go and do, right? So we can come here. So response is this one. So for example, right, customer say that, okay, instead of output message, right, we can say only message we need, right? So result is okay, but we need the message only, right? So again, we are making some changes, right? Okay, continue, continue, and finish. So if you see this time, right, only one error we are getting. And whether all our flow is disturbing, no. Where we are getting that output only at the end point, right? So that is the correct way, right? Because it should impact at only one place, right? So now what we do, right? if you make any changes, new variables, anything you do, right? Only this is the last point, only it is going to be impacted, not all your codes, right? So we can come here. Now we don't have this one, right? So we can go and delete this one, and we can go and map this to the our new message variable and validate. So this is how it is easy to make these changes, right? Save, right? So this is what it got executed successfully, right? So this is the way we have to take care of these situations, right? Otherwise, what will happen, right? It will go and impact each and everything, right? So suppose this is our output, right? We see, right? What will happen? Suppose if our input parameters will modify it, what will happen again? It is going to be too many issues, right? Because wherever we will get, right, all this mapping will go and break, right? These operation codes will go and break, right? So we can go and do the same thing for that also, right? We can create in this only, right? We can create 3 more variables, right? So instead of directly using those here, right? What we do, right? We can go and use into the variable, and then we can go and use those things, right? So that okay, in future, right? If those names or anything will be changed, right? It will not go and impact any situation, right? So that is the way we can go and achieve our things. So this is what we have the assign. So assign is nothing but like our global like variable. If we wanted to create the variables, right? So for that purpose, right, we will use this assign activity. Any questions into this one if anyone has? Okay, so if no questions, right, I can clone this one, and for input parameters, right, if I will go and show you how much it will go and impact. Right. For example, right, we can say that, okay, we need to modify the input parameters, like how we modify the output parameters, right? So instead of number and right, it will be like suppose number 1, number 2, right? Then operation, let it have operation, or we can do this also, right? Or for example, right, let it have only operation as of now, right? We can continue, 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 and finish. If you see, right, it got 6 error, right? And suppose if I will go and change the operation name also, right? What will happen, right? These numbers can go and increase. Let me go and have this. So instead of complete operation, right, I will say, I will write action, right? Continue, continue, and finish. So see what is happened, right? We started getting 9 errors, right? So now what we do, right? We got 9 errors, right? So all the flows again start getting failed, right? Our mapper also got failed. This also got failed, right? So each and everything, right? It will go and start breaking. Now what we do, right? We can come here only, and here, right? We can go and create the variables, right? So this time, right? What we'll do, right? We'll not create a null variable, right? So we can say here variable. So our variable name, right? We can go and give anything. So we'll do variable number 1. And what we'll do, go and do here, right? We'll go and assign the value into this one, right? So this is the number 1, right? Which we are getting. So we can go and assign into this one, right? Now if you see, right, we just put number 1, right? Why this kind of message it is coming, right? So we have given the space, right, in between. So because of that one, right, it is coming like this one. This is a system generated, right? So for example, right, number 2, I will create without a space. So if you see, this was space was there, right? So because of that space, right, the special characters are coming, right? So those special characters are nothing, but those are there for the space only. If we come here, right? So in the number one, right, we are getting this space. If you go and create the second variable, right? Variable underscore number two, right? And this time if you go right, so if you see for the number two, right, we are not getting this special characters in between, right? So this is what we can go and do. Now what we do right here, we can go and create the last operation, variable operation. And in this one, right, what we do right, we can go and use that action variable. We can go and do the save. Right. So now what we do right, instead of using all things here, right, what we do right, we can go and use those variables because we have overrided those variables, right? Now we can come to this condition first. And here, right, instead of using the variable directly, right, what we do right, we'll use our variable right here. So we can say configure, and here, right, instead of operation, we'll use our variable operation name, right? Save. Rest all things are going to be same only, right? We can come back here. And in this one, right, whatever we are doing, right, number one, number two, mapping with this one, right? So instead of mapping with this one, right, what we do, right, we'll do the mapping with this one, right? So we can say variable number one. So if you say it is not, we are not able to do, right? Because mapping is already done, right? So we need to delete that existing mapping, and then we can go and do this one. Variable number one and variable number two. Validate. So it's validated. If you see, right, errors started removing automatically, right? So earlier 9 error was there, now only 7 errors we have, right? Same way quickly we can come here and we'll do the same activity. Configure. Variable operation. Save. See 6 error. We can come here. Delete target node. Number one. And number two. Validate. Come back again. So 5 errors. Same way we can come back in here. Variable operation. Save. We can come back again here. Delete target node. Number one and number two. And validate. So this got completed again. Save. So 3 errors we have, right? We can come back into this one. Yeah, hello. Yeah, hi team, I'm back. So let me just share my screen. Now what we need to do, right? We need to modify this one, right? So we can go. Configure. Okay, we can directly do. So this is going to be our variable operation. So this is also one way, right? Either you can go and delete sometimes if that configure is not coming, right? So wherever we have that one, right? So if you see it, this was a system generated like for the mapper and all, right? So we can go and remove that one and we can go and put those variable too. We can go and do the save. So this activity we are able to do, right? Now we can quickly remove this mapper also. And we can do the mapping for our object. And validate. So this is how it is easy to make the changes and we can do it. Now if you say still we are getting one error, right? If you see right flow it is kind of a same, right? Completely error free, right? Where this issue we are getting, right? So we can click. So this is coming for the primary identifier because we have changed our number one and number two, right? So what will happen, right? Now we can go and put those new tracking variables, right? So we need to use the action. And this number one and then this number two, right? We can go and do the save. Now if you see it, still our code and everything, right? Logic is same, right? But what we did, right? We just have to rebranded this one into a new way, right? Now what will happen, right? Suppose if I will come back, right? Activate and test it out, it will go and work fine, right? So we'll say we are dividing. We can go and do the run. We are getting that output. And in the flow, right, if you see, right, what will happen, right? In the flow, it will go and generate here. If you see, right, messages. So it is assigning these activities, right? Assigned with null. Then this is assigning with these values, right? Now suppose if tomorrow, right, customer can come there, okay, by mistake I have put here space, right? I don't need this space, right? Like this one I need, right? So we know, right, easily, right, we can go and change, right? So this time, right, yes, we have to modify something, but we don't have to modify this much, right? What we did in the beginning, right? So for example, if we come here, right, and suppose if customer will say that, okay, I don't need that space. So we can come quickly here and we can remove the space from here, right? Number two, continue, continue, and finish. So what is happening this time, right? From 9, right, we are getting 2 errors only. And those 2 also, right? One is for the business identifier, right? So for the logic, right, only one error we are getting, right? So we can quickly fix this business identifier first because we have modified the business identifier name, right? So we need to modify this one. So we can say number one, save. So for flow, right, only one we got, right? Where? The place where we are assigning that one, right? Now we can go and use the new variable number one and save, right? So this is how it is easy to make the changes now, right? If any changes we need to make, right? So our flow, right? Our main logic is not going to be impacted, right? So this is a way we can go and use a assign. So assign is nothing but the variable creations and variable usage, right? So with this one, right, we will wrap up the today's session here only. If anyone has any questions, let me know. We can go and take those questions now. Any questions, anyone? Okay, so if no questions, then I think we can go and wrap up the session today here only. And tomorrow also we will connect at the same time only, 8 to 9 only. So I think going forward for this week, I think we will connect 8 to 9 only. I will update the time again in the group. So tomorrow, right? Most probably it will be 8 to 9 only.
Prashant, you cannot do 7 to 8 because it's a little bit late for me. So,
For tomorrow and day after tomorrow, it will be 8 to 9 only. Then I can, because I got something from the project specific, so I have to just, so maybe for next 2 days, we'll have 8 to 9. After that tonight, I
Okay.
will let you know that.
okay. Yes. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, share those visitors question.
Do you think I already shared in the group, right? Or not?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me check. If not, I will share again. I thought I shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
And day before, video also not uploaded, I think.
Video. Okay, I
Previous-
will check with. Yeah, I think maybe because of the Saturday they have not uploaded. I will just check
Yeah.
with them and yeah.
Sure.
So most probably I think today also, I think it's kind of a holiday, right? So I'm not sure whether it will be uploaded today also or not. But tomorrow, right? For sure they will upload.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.